Hey, what's up there, Chris? Hey, sorry everybody. For a little bit of a delay, still kind of getting myself set up before I turn my camera on. How we doing, Chris? Oh, your mic's off.
What's up, man? Marcus, what's good? How's everything, man? I'm just here chilling, man.
Man, it's going all right. I saw all these different topics that were going on, and I was like, you know what? Instead of doing a bunch of different separate videos, let me just hop on real quick. Talk about some of these issues. Maybe go in detail on some, but it was just way too much stuff going on that I needed to talk about some of this stuff. So I guess without further ado, we'll start the show. Hold on, let me make sure I'm good. Hold on a second. Hold on, got adjusted a little. There we go. That's better. Uh, let's see. This is what I've been thinking with Marcus Cage. I am your host, Marcus Cage, and I am here with my good friend and co-host on the Political Matrix, Mr. Cy Lawson. How we doing, Chris?
What's going on, Marcus? Everything is good, man. Just here, on what is it, Thursday, I think? Yes, Thursday
Yeah,
night.
Thursday.
Just here chilling, man. You
Yeah,
know?
I had a bunch of topics, which I guess I'll go in the overall topics. Did I grab the right notebook?
Yeah, you got a bunch of KC fitters, kid. Your fitted game is up to par,
Man,
kid.
I got I got so many. I got green ones. I got blue ones. I got a little bit of everything. I guess I forgot the notebook, but you know what? I can kind of remember most of it off the top of my head. The main topics that I want to talk about is, for one, all this stuff that we have going on with Biden. We have, of course, the Derek Chauvin trial, which is going on, and then on top of it, we have the what was his name, young man Dante Wright, who was shot and killed in the car, and then we have the other one with the other shooting in Chicago, young kid, 13 years old, Adam Toledo. And so I want to talk
Yes, I
about
just
all
saw
three of
that.
those. Definitely want to talk about all those. Then there's some topics that I wanted to talk about with Congress that's going on, especially Pelosi, AOC, the reparations, some of those bills and all that. So I want to talk about a little bit of that. Um, and then I put CEOs in there. So I guess that's the main topics which I wanted to go over. Um, I guess I will go ahead and we will start with the cops and the police.
You said which one we'll start with?
Yeah,
VC, what's up?
we're going ahead and start with the cops and the police.
Variant, what's up?
Hey, Varian, how we doing? I see VC. Hey, yeah, I'm back. I just been doing some stuff on the other channels, but I guarantee you, I will. You guys will see my ugly mug a lot more, and I'll be doing more content and live streams. So make sure to keep an eye out for that, and also make sure to check just check my channel in general, because sometimes the notifications don't go out to everybody. So you know how that YouTube game goes. So just make sure to just look out for it. You never know; it might slip in with some other content. But the cop situation. Now I have the title, and along with all of these shootings, all go hand in hand. Now we go back to right before the election. We had all the protests out in the streets when Black Lives Matter was pushing for all this social change, and it seemed like the whole entire world was ready to say, you know what, we have not been treating Black people fairly. They have not been getting a fair shake, and a lot of times these officers are literally getting away with murder, and this has to stop. And not only is it going to stop in criminal justice, but we're going to expand this out to all the other avenues where Black people are being disenfranchised. Election happens, and I guess our consolation prize is supposed to be Kamala Harris, because I literally watch in Minnesota. They're protesting this newest recent shooting, And all the policies that they put in place that the police were not supposed to do anymore, they are all doing, you know, across the board, and it's perfectly fine and legal. I mean, or not legal, but it's being allowed. And it's like, at what point do you guys not expect this to start going in a different direction? I mean, people are only going to sit around and keep having that reaction because you have the George Floyd situation. Okay, you're in custody, and there's nothing you can do. You get killed. You have the Adam Toledo situation. You're running. The cop tells you to stop running. You put your hands up. He shoots you. You also have that reminds me of the Philando Castile. He's sitting in the car. He tells the officers that he has a concealed weapon on him. They tell him to reach for something, then they shoot him. I don't know why. And I'm gonna be completely blunt and direct here. I don't know why. For some reason, if you're a white officer, you're giving so much latitude for your mistakes. Over and over and over. And then with this, I mean, that time back into the Derek Chauvin thing, the examiner would start bringing up all these other things: tailpipe exhaust. He possibly had drug use. He was out of shape. Start bringing up all this other bullshit that doesn't matter. For one, George Floyd was a pretty large man. For him to even be able to take a grown man, putting both knees on his neck and shoulder area, and not dying sooner, should show you that that wasn't what the cause is, because you put anybody else down there and see how long they live. Or if the health examiner wants to use that as an excuse, I'm a plus 200-pound man. Why don't I kneel on their neck and let's see if they survive it? And let's go find the healthiest one. I'm tired of these excuses being allowed, and then the jury pool is going to sit back like complete dumbasses. Well, not really dumbasses. What it is you're looking for an excuse to let this white boy off who looks just like somebody in your family. You're like, I could have made that mistake, because you see him. You don't see the victim. You only see him and from his point of view. And not only is the media, you know, you'll have a mistrial on a situation like this, and they just go, oh, well, it was a mistrial, on to the next story. That's the reason why we have so much animosity between police. That's why there's animosity, a lot of it, between, you know, many of the races. Because if you look at the percentages of how many cops are white, it's a high percentage. And so when you have a population, speaking of just the black population right now, at about 18%, and then you factor in the Latino population, which is about 21%. These people are in contact on a regular basis with a good chunk of white people who are either racist or extremely stupid and given an excuse to be stupid. I mean, I listened to a story about another cop not too long ago. He had been brought up on accusation of molestation of a child. The evidence was all there, but it was thrown out. Now, 20 plus years later, more people are coming out complaining about this officer, and there are new accusations, and there is plenty of evidence to go with it. For some reason, this whole buddy system with the cops is not ever dealt with. It's all this lip service. Oh, well, defund, that's a little too harsh. And then this shit happens again. I mean, you have the officer who shoots the kid. Now, here's the thing. Whether you were going for your gun or your taser, here's another thought pattern which you could have possibly had. You've already pulled him over. You already have his ID. You've already run him. You know where he lives. How hard is it for you to just let him go and then pick him up a couple of days later? Why is it you have to be fucking Wonder Woman or Captain America and solve all of this by yourself. I mean, that goes back to that shooting which happened and I believe it was San Francisco with the kid who was running through the yards. You have a helicopter above. You have other officers over here, other officers over there. Why the hell do you need to engage into a supposed firefight because you think he has a weapon? You're in a covered position. Stay behind the fucking covered position and stop being a damn hero. They get into these hero situations, and then they freak out, and then somebody ends up dead, and then there's all these excuses.
Mm-hmm.
I joined the military at 18, going into combat zones and war zones and all that. The rules that they put on 18-year-olds and that we're able to handle them under extreme situations and extreme pressure. And we have law enforcement, which are old enough to be most of these people's fathers and mothers. But yet there's always an excuse given to these 30, 40, 50-year-old people who can't discern and make a simple judgment call. And then everybody gets into the, well, once he got into the tussle, he had to grab his gun. Did you have to get into the tussle? Did you have to? Could you have not handled that in multiple different ways? And then people will say, well, police don't get the same training as military. They get all of these weapons. They get tanks. They get all of this shit. Why are they not getting the training then? That's what I want to ask. Why are they not getting that training then? So the excuse, and the thing about it is this female officer was 25, 26 years on the force. I guess I lost Chris there, but maybe bad signal, he'll come back in. But 25 years, 26 years on the force, and she's supposed to be the one training in that situation. Now, as somebody who frequented the range quite often when I was active duty, if you're not familiar with your firearm well enough to know the difference and the weight between that and a taser, that taser is probably half of the weight than that loaded weapon which she had. But couldn't notice the difference. Also, couldn't notice the difference. Here's one thing which people don't factor in also. There's a reason why they put the gun on your dominant side and why they put the taser on the non-dominant side. So when you reach for the taser, you're using a different hand, so you have to consciously think about which hand you're using. But this is going to be an excuse. I was going for my taser. It doesn't matter. If you made a mistake or if you did it on purpose, a life was lost and you have to pay for it. It's the same thing as if you were driving your car, down whatever main strip of road in the middle of the night drinking, and you hit somebody. You didn't intentionally want to kill them. It wasn't your choice to kill them, but you killed them. You have to deal with that loss of life, and that husband or father or wife or daughter who has been lost. You can't just, I'm sorry, and that's cool. I mean, that leads into one of the other topics, which I was thinking about with Congress. Congress is talking about looking into the reparation bills, an inquiry into reparations. Now, slavery was how long ago? I'm pretty sure all of us know how long ago slavery was. Pretty much all of us can admit slavery was horrible and wrong. We all can admit that the slave masters and descendants of them profited richly off of it and set them up to be in the places they are now. And the advantage. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every single person was able to benefit. Some families lost fortunes. Some just did bad decisions with money, so they became lower class and ended up in the situation which they're in. And a number of other reasons. But the point I'm saying is one group of people, and there are multiple nations, most of them coming from the place we call Europe, all were benefiting. And even if they didn't have slaves, it didn't matter. To not be a slave, you were able to have education, you were able to own land, and land is where wealth comes in. That's the reason why the 40 acres and a mule was never given to those slaves, because then they could actually start to build something on their own. Instead, don't give them land, just free them. So now they're free. They have no land, they have nowhere to go. So that's where you find most of the loitering laws. That's when our government started writing those kind of laws for free slaves who had nowhere to go. So you're just standing around, so you just have to keep moving and moving and moving. And then when you finally stop moving, you get that right or wrong racist cop, however you want to say it, and then next thing you know, you're arrested and you're on the chain gang and being used back into one of the slave masters who basically just, transferred all those slave earnings into a new corporation or business, basically keeping you back in a form of slavery because you're still going to be working for them. Now, sharecropping, which is what a lot of the freed slaves transitioned into, all sharecropping was those freed slaves were given a portion of the land to be able to grow crops and feed themselves and live on, while paying taxes to the landowner, never really ever being able to get ahead. So still, a form of slavery where you are not physically being touched or harmed. Then that rolls into deeper and deeper and deeper, conversations. But all of those things get us to the point of where we are now. Hold on one second. Let me grab. Sorry about that. Mouth gets a little dry when I get on my little tangents. All right. So on to Congress. Since I kind of segued into it already, even though I went on a run on, but Congress, we have Pelosi, who has this whole what is it, stock issue going on right now. That's what we'll call it for the moment, since there's no charges and there has been no allegations of actual wrongdoing, even though it looks to me corrupt as hell, just like I consider Pelosi. So it makes sense. It fits with the whole narrative that she would be corrupt. And then on top of this, her book, well, not really her book, because if you know these Congress people, they don't really like to do too much of anything. So more than likely, some kind of bootlicking reporter has decided to write a book about her, whatever. But anyway, I reported about the Republicans when they did it, and a couple of Democrats. Dianne Feinstein, I remember her being in the mix also. I reported on that at the time, and my position stays the same as it's been since I was about 20 years old, and I've been preaching this message to everybody. If you are in office, you should not be able to trade stocks, period. It's not that complicated because you have knowledge. Now they can say, oh, well, you don't have insider knowledge or this and that, and you didn't create the knowledge. They're playing semantics and playing bullshit word games. That's something we need to cut out from people. People like to play around with word games and act stupid like they don't know what that means. If you are writing legislations that deal with major corporations, which you have investments in, you affect that. And you are conscious to know if you are helping a stock, which you have money in, or if you are hurting the stock. So let's all just stop playing games with this. Oh, we don't know if she was doing this or if she was doing that or what was going on. We all know Pelosi is corrupt as hell. She's what I believe she was reported as the seventh wealthiest congressperson. 114 million as the reported number, which I highly doubt that it's only that. Most of these wealthy people lie about their numbers and hide a lot of stuff offshore. So we already know that that number is pretty much BS. Um, but the issue still remains, and this is I get it. Somebody might be able to make an argument. Well, the smaller congressmen or state houses is a little different. Okay, I'll give you that. But literally, the Speaker of the House, if the president and vice president, if they have to, put their stuff into a trust, why doesn't the person who, if those two people die, would assume the presidency, why wouldn't that person have to do it also? And here's the thing about it: presidents and vice presidents don't write legislation, but the Speaker of the House does. And so they literally have direct control over legislations and they're profiting off of the stock. But I guess it's beating a dead horse because we already know that these corrupt people have rigged this system so much so that there's not going to be much done about it. And FBI is not going to have, they're not going to do anything. I mean, we know how this game goes because they're going to want funding for something. And so you scratch my back, I scratch your back. That's what's going to happen. So on to the next topic that I wanted to talk about within the whole Congress thing. AOC. Now, AOC has been in the news quite a bit lately, saying she's going to be off Twitter and I'm going to be off Instagram or social media, whatever it was. But she's on different other ones, and then there's all this emotional breakdown stuff, and then you have these people who are out there defending AOC tooth and nail on everything, and I just don't understand how you could be that delusional. I mean, Congress is not American Idol. It's not you fall in love with a politician because they're singing a tune that you like to hear. They need to actually deliver. And too many of you are way too happy and starstruck with somebody who's just saying something that sounds good to your ears. And that's what I think about AOC. She says what's good to your ears and what sounds nice and what you want to hear. Because watch, all of this, that even TYT has been kind of giving her a little bit of the stank eye. You're going to start seeing her start to, modify her language a little bit, because now she's been getting like super close to Pelosi and she's going to have to create some kind of distance. But we all know it's completely fraudulent. So, I mean, I guess AOC, that's all I had to say on her because it's no point in engaging and dealing with AOC. She's just there to be, what would we call it? She's there to be a sheepdog. And she's the next sheepdog after Bernie Sanders. And if you can't see it, then I don't know what to tell you. Oh yeah, don't think I won't get to your comments. I'll make sure to go back to all the comments and address them. I just wanted to be able to get this fluid thought out and not let myself get sidetracked because Thomas, especially, you know how I can go on my rants and get sidetracked. So just want to try to remember to hit all the topics which I had in mind. Let's see. What was the other one? Yeah, the reparations is not going to go anywhere. Oh, yeah. I did want to talk about Biden, but there was something else the CEOs. Just recently, I read a story about how the CEOs, I think it was in Forbes or CNBC, where they are fighting tooth and nail about not trying to pay any kind of deductions or anything. Hold on one second. So I was saying that the CEOs, they're fighting tooth and nail about trying to save every little penny. Now, the fact that you could take probably 100 of these billionaires and they literally could solve poverty in America. So you wouldn't even need police. everybody could almost live in a utopia, but that's not what they want. What they want is everybody at their beck and call, everybody oppressed and fighting at the bottom. That's what they want because it would be so easy for them to fix and alleviate a lot of the problems. But if they keep the division going, and if you have a wicked heart and mind, you can use that to profit richly. Now, what you plan to do with all this money, I don't get it. Jeff Bezos, what are you going to do with the rest? What are you doing with this money? I mean, I guess I'll let you hop in, Chris. Have you
No,
heard any of what was going on? I know you've been having some trouble.
yeah. I was trying to like listen from my phone too. So I mean, yeah, I was listening. Go ahead, man. Keep rolling, man.
All right. Yeah, I look at these CEOs and it's like, what are you gonna do with any more money? What I used to ask people this little question all the time. Say, so if you can have everybody around you being, cordial, and everybody, was pretty much cool with you, had no beef with you, no problem at all, and nobody had to worry about anything. Would you prefer that, or would you prefer to just have a whole lot of money and pay more money for security and all these things and have all this anxiety, but have all the money? And I mean, for me, it's pretty simple. I would rather have the simple life where everybody's taken care of, everybody's good, and not need to have everything and lord over other people. Now, some people have, I feel, an extremely corrupt and insatiable spirit where they just gotta have more and more and more and more and more. And the difference is, these wealthy people, a lot of them are already on third base, before they even got to where they are now. In fact, if you start looking through most of these sports teams, you'll start seeing a common thread that there's many father to son transactions going on between these teams. And so when you wonder, how did this like 40-year-old something person, inherit all, I mean, make all this money and then have enough to buy a football team or a basketball team or soccer, whatever, you start to notice that the reason why is because it's inherited. And if you start digging, honestly, I feel like the best way to figure it out is if you go all the way back to slavery and really do a deep dive and you start finding out where all this money comes from all of these billionaires, because um, you'll get some revelations that you might be surprised about. And that's why I honestly feel like that's the secret to most of the wealthy people. It does come from slavery. That's the honest to God truth. Now, here's the thing which we always look at it as, well, there was just a slave master here, and then there was the ships. We got to remember there was a whole entire industry that was dedicated to this. There were people who fashioned the iron pieces for the ships. There were people who supplied the timber, the wood. There are people who supplied the silk for the sails. There are people who were supplying, the ribbons and the cords. There were people who insured the ships. There were people who held the auctions at their locations and were basically just housing places to warehouse slaves. They might not have themselves owned a lot of slaves, but they profited richly because they were organizing the slave trades. And a lot of times we're focused on the slave owners and just the slave masters and not the people who were funding it. I mean, what is it, the Bank of Britain and the Lords of London, how they've been coming around and saying, hey, this was our part in funding it. If you start looking back into Chase, you start looking back into Goldman Sachs, you start looking into all of these corporations, and all of their money comes from slavery. There was no, oh, my grandfather was just this billionaire, and I mean, brilliant guy who made himself a billionaire. And then what you find is a lot of these other people who maybe they weren't billionaires, they worked for that billionaire somewhere down the line. And through that connection is how they made it up. It's not that I'm not saying that there aren't people who are success stories out there who are wizards who beat the whole market and figure all the tricks and traps. and make it all the way to the top. I'm not saying that. We see that in entertainment, we see that in science all the time. But what I'm saying is easily the 95% of CEOs and movie execs, all of these people, all make their money and have inherited their money through slavery and conquest. I don't know. What's some of your thoughts, Chris?
I mean, that's undeniable. I mean, whether or not people could see the links in it or the connections, that's their ignorance, not ours. They just haven't done their homework to put it all together yet. You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously, us talking to each other about it, I mean, we're just preaching to the choir when we say that to each other. That's mainly for, the people out there who really don't know that. But, to people like us, that's very clear. Um, you talked about a lot of different things. I'm looking at the police shootings and all the news all coming all at once. It just feels like it's how can I say? It's a little overwhelming, a little bit, because it's so much. You don't know who to direct your anger at, when, how, because you keep seeing the same story over and over. At some point, something's going to happen. I don't know what that is, but it feels like we can't keep going. We can't keep on this ride much longer before something really bad happens. People are continuing to protest. They're in the street, and at this point, you're not really doing anything. You're not going at the people who are doing this to you. You're not really attacking the systems. You're not disrupting much. You're protesting late at night.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a difficult thing, because they're angry. They want to get out in the street. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. And I understand all of that. And there is a need for it. But how helpful will that be tomorrow, the day after, next week, next month? Are the cops going to be on edge for the next couple weeks or months? Of course. The issue is, are they going to change behavior? That we know they won't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's some of the things which I've noticed, but like we've said before, we just feel it that, and we can see that more and more of these events we're going to keep, escalating, and that's what I feel is kind of going on. That it's more of just an escalation of a lot of things, and I think no matter how much America and the political elite that they want to get everything back to normal, I personally believe that the overriding powers above said, not so fast. You're not just going to have your ice cream sundae and be done with this. You got some issues you need to deal with. And so we're going to keep bringing them back around until you decide you want to fess up and start doing something. Or else that pressure is going to keep ratcheting up. Now, granted, you're not going to, I agree with Chris, it's not going to really make too much of a difference. You out there in the streets, unless you have some kind of legislation and plan and know who to put pressure on. But honestly, what I've found is you want to know how you really start to make things move. You don't even have to be violent. You don't have to be in physical numbers. The thing is, the people who are behind this, you know what bothers them more than even you showing up protesting? Shame. Shame is a powerful tool. And if you started shaming some of these people, I mean, and all you got to do is just start telling what they're doing, their history, where their money is going, this, that, all the things that they're involved in. Shame them. Now, I'm not saying make up crap. I'm not saying start lying on people. But if you know, for instance, that Pelosi is sitting up here basically doing money laundering right here in everybody's face, stop being nice and stop not wanting to say it. You need to call out everything that these people are doing, and keep an eye out for. I'm going to do an extended video on Nancy Pelosi again, because I hope you all caught my old one where she was talking about why she didn't impeach Bush. But I got more things for you all who are not familiar with Pelosi or don't remember all the horrendous crap that she's done or let slide under her watch. I'm going to give a nice trip down memory lane for everybody so we can remember Because in my opinion, honestly, in my lifetime, Nancy Pelosi is literally the worst Speaker of the House that we've had. The worst. She's been the most corrupt, and she's let the most world events and atrocities go on under her watch. She's let the infrastructure in this nation fall apart. She's let some of the most what were our sinners of everything, commerce, all that. Yeah, you know, cities like Baltimore, cities like Detroit, all of them just fall apart. And she didn't give a shit because she's out there in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, and everything's nice over there. You know, being somebody from the Midwest, I take it a little bit personal because she was right there along cheerleading with all that NAFTA shit and shipping jobs out of the Midwest. While she doesn't care, they're having champagne parties and going out to her winery. They don't care, you know, about anything outside. That's why you have those one Democrats who are fighting so hard for salt tax because they're all millionaires. They want to help themselves and their buddies, but middle fingers to you. And I'm like, at what point are you people going to wake up and start getting angry about some of this? I'm not saying do something physically. I'm saying be angry. In fact, instead of just Pelosi is doing this, you know what? All of you need to start atting these people. Let them start. Let their Twitter be blown up and over flooded with ats. You know, go directly at them instead of just talking about them. I tag them in all kinds of stuff. So if they want to block me, cool, going ahead. But that's what you need to do. They need to just be annoyed because these people are so weak and so thin-skinned and so terrified. And the reason why is, think about it. Most of y'all been in relationships where either you were a cheater or you or the other person was cheating. What does a cheater start doing? Accusing you of cheating. A person who is insecure all the time and always thinking that you're up to something, it's because they're the ones who's always up to something. And if you've had the decades of corruption and, you know, just horrible ethics that Pelosi's had, yeah, you probably are looking over your shoulder every 5 minutes and scared of everything and thinking that, oh, well, this comment, it's an insult, and you're worried about the insult behind the insult because you're scared. It's kind of like when you'll watch somebody question something. Like, for instance, I've seen, like, because for those who don't know, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Um, those who aren't familiar with them, look when they're out on the streets and they'll have a sign and they'll ask a Caucasian person, what do you feel about slavery? They start getting uncomfortable and start trying to set up a dodge before anything. And what that tells you is that's guilt. You know what happened was wrong. And you know, really, you guys are all secretly ignoring it. You don't want to rectify it by giving reparations. And then on top of that, when one of those descendants, more than likely, of the slave trades gets shot down in the street, you don't even want to give them justice. In 2020, 2021, you don't even want to give them justice. And so you wonder why some of those brothers out there are extremely aggressive and yelling and calling people, you know, the devil and stuff like that. In which, to clarify, understanding what devil actually means is deceiver. That's what it means. Satan actually means adversary. So when they're calling somebody Satan or the devil, they're saying you're my adversary. You are a liar. And think about it. Does our government not lie? Is our government probably not the biggest liar in the world? Well, not the biggest liar. There's somebody that I put ahead of them. There's one nation that I put ahead of them. But we'll let you guys all guess and figure that one out. But they're one of the biggest liars in the world. So under that definition, which I've just explained to you all, and you can look it up if you don't believe me, devil means deceiver, means liar. Who's the biggest liar in the world? The United States. The biggest liar in the world. And and I guess that rolls on to the next topic that I wanted to talk about. Final topic, Biden. Biden also was sat there and been a part of a lot of this same crap. He's been the one who's been punking, bullying the nations. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, Biden is. I mean, there's not much to really say about him. You know what I'm saying? He is who we've seen him to be. If you follow politics for any amount of time, especially over the last 10 years or so, and you've looked back, you've researched these people, and you've looked into it, Biden is just as problematic as Pelosi or Bush or the rest of them. You know what I'm saying? He's not anybody who should get a pass. And it's funny that he's there now and we have all this stuff happening. He's one who's always he's a law and order Democrat, as they like to say, right? He's always one who's for private prisons. He's for longer prison sentences, etc., etc. So he's down with this whole thing. You know what I mean? So looking at him for help or support is just a waste of time. The same with Pelosi. Pelosi is great for a number of reasons, right? And I use great being sarcastic. I think her greatest skill is that she keeps the right wing on the Republican team, because the voters look at Pelosi, they can't stand her. They're like, I would never vote for Democrats because of Pelosi. So, Pelosi is a great recruiting tool for the Republican Party, because they don't really have to do much. They just have to say to those constituents, look at this crazy chick over here, you should vote for me. And of course that leads them to get guys like Ted Cruz and all the rest of the idiots that they constantly support on that side. So a solution to all of this would be to truly separate from the parties, right? No, don't think Democrat, don't think Republican, don't think that somebody new is let's just look at it with AOC. She's new, she was fresh, she was running. Everybody thought, oh, okay, she might, and the squad even, I'll expand it to them. Everyone thought, okay, we got this new younger batch of politicians coming in that they're going to be able to make these positive changes. And you can look one by one, they've all fallen into typical Democrat politician. So that's number one. Number two, the issue with the police, going back to that one, I saw a comment. Somebody said you can't shame them. And they're kind of right. You can't really shame these people. They don't care. You know what it is? They need fear, not shame. You know what I'm saying? Because they still walk out.
But the truth scares them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the truth does scare them, but at the same time, the majority of the people are not that smart, shall we say. You could tell them a whole bunch of things about these people, but, they still fly their flag for their favorite team or their favorite player, So you can't even really shame them or use facts to really sway too many people's minds. At this point in time, they got to be scared. They're not scared at all. None of these politicians, they're not scared because nobody puts any pressure on them. They're not scared at all. If they were scared, they wouldn't have shown up in Georgia and said, here's $2,000, we're going to give you $2,000, then turn around and give you $1,400. That goes to show they have contempt for you, not fear. You know what I'm saying? And if they had shame, they wouldn't have done that. So again, something has to be done to where they are fearful. I'm not going to say too much more than that because, things are funny money these days online. You have to be very careful with your words, or people get removed or people show up to your house. But at the end of the day, I think those who are listening understand what I'm saying. I know you do as well. And again, that's not a call for violence to anybody, but all I'm saying is if violence keeps happening to you, what you're going to do, there's only so many cheeks you have to turn. You know what I'm saying? Before something is done. So people really should find a way. And you know what? Before it even gets to that, instead of tackling DC, the House of Representatives, the Senate, you really got to go to your local level, like really local. Police chief, your city council, aldermen, for those in Illinois. And it really has to be a sustained community effort. It just can't be we all get together one time for one politician, one cause, one issue that we like. It really needs to be sustained big time, because you have these police captains coming out after reviewing the body cam. And mind you, they know about all this stuff months ago, like with the little boy who just got shot. Can't think of his name. You said it earlier. Adam Toledo. Yeah, so look, he got shot in what, March? This incident happened in March. So they've all been sitting there game planning this. And it's funny, they released this shit The same time, Chauvin trial is going on. The other dude just gets shot. So it's like, yo, they want you to get hot and jump up and do something so they can bring in the National Guard, so they can start busting you over the head, so they can start bringing in all these measures. And I'm telling you, I guarantee you, all these people in the street will be called domestic terrorists in due time.
Yep. Great points. I mean, I thought about that, but I had forgotten, and I was like, you know what, that is a possibility, but great, great point that you brought up and the way you expanded on it. Figure I'll go into some comments real quick before I get into Biden and Ukraine, and it's going to be fun. Let's see. VC says they don't get trained because restraint isn't desired. The loose cannons aren't the minorities in the blue shirts. Exactly. So true. Also, can't keep the satisfied masses and ever increasing awareness with the working class suppressed if they don't believe you won't slaughter them. Yeah, I mean, they're going to push these people, because if you have somebody who feels like, if I encounter a cop and it starts going sideways, I'm 50-50 where he's going to kill me anyway, you're going to have more people who's going to, you know what, screw it. Let's just do it. And so I don't advocate for that, but I mean, the way things are going, I can see people start to take that mentality. Thomas says blacks in Tulsa had land and were building wealth, but the local establishment took it away. Yeah, they did build land, but in all, we got to remember that land, they had to really work hard to even get that, because that didn't come from any kind of reparations. That came from, saving up and penny pinching, and then all of these black people started to build up.
Well, the thing that gets missed,
nobody wanted.
The thing that gets missed is there was a greater sense of community and a need to stick together and work together and to continue to do that. We're not, unfortunately, we've gotten away from that, and
yeah, it says that
the results have been, the results have been great for some individuals, but for the group at large, it hasn't been that great. We haven't reached those places again.
Yep. Man, some points there. He said also black farmers after slavery who bought land, inherited land, or were awarded land were doing good, but the USDA took 12 million acres from black farmers. This calls for land buyback programs. And then they did the same thing also. Let's keep in mind always, they did the same damn thing with the Native Americans also. Everybody says, well, they got they got reservations. But have you been to the reservations? Is it the best land? Is it fertile? Do they have full protection? Are they able to act autonomously? If they want to build a pipeline which goes right through their land, do they care? No. So what good is saying that they have reservations if the reservations, you don't even respect their sovereignty? Mm-hmm. Let's see, what's the other one? Yes. Thomas said AOC is controlled opposition. Exactly. That's at my point. That's all I see her as, and I'm wondering how many are going to follow that lead, because
they all are. Well, look, they went from Medicare to we need access to healthcare. They even dropped the pretense of saying affordable. They said access. So it's total bullshit, because quite honestly, because we all have access, meaning we can all go at least to the hospital. Do you have access to a primary care physician? Now that's a different story. No, but we all have access to at least some level of medical care via the hospital. Whether it's good or not, that's another debate, right? But you can just.
I was gonna say, you can go simpler than that. We all have access to a Bugatti. We all have access to a G5. Can we afford it?
Correct. That's what I'm saying. So just the fact that one word that she chose, using that word access just goes to show, like, they pulled her aside, and was like, look, this is how you need to start talking. None of this feels, it doesn't feel like these are her thoughts.
So you gotta disagree with that. I'm sorry. They have no shame. you might be right. You said
They don't care.
you're
Yo, look,
the people who
Pelosi got
have
on
no.
TV and look, Pelosi got on TV with her ice cream and her fridge that was a shit ton of money. You know what I'm saying? Like they really don't have any shame, kid. Just look
Well,
at them. The insider trading, they did that knowing it was gonna come out, and sure enough, it did. No investigation, nobody in jail, nobody under pressure. So that shame, they really they don't not really they have no shame. So like I said, the only thing left to instill in these people is a sense of deep fear. And I don't know if people are prepared to do that because there's a lot of pushback. You know, the thing is, there are solutions, there are ways forward. It requires a certain level of sacrifice that I don't think a lot of people are prepared to deal with. You know, that's the main word that we need to deal with: sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice to make a change? Because you're not going to be able to affect change and then go back home, chill in the AC, relax, play your game, you know, put the game on, what have you. It's gonna, you know, there's gonna be some bumps and bruises that come along with it. Some people not gonna make it. Some people gonna be incarcerated. Some gonna be captured, etc., etc. So, for those people screaming revolution or who want that kind of smoke, just know this ain't a movie, dog. You know,
this is gonna be real life, and once it gets going, it ain't gonna stop. That's the one thing y'all got to think about. When the revolution gets going, for one, there's no organization to it ever. It's never going to go how you planned. And more than likely, it's going to turn into chaos. And if you're willing to rebuild as a phoenix from the ashes, hey, more, whatever, do you. But keep that in mind that once it pops off, that's how it's going to go. It's going to be chaotic and nobody's going to have control. We're
I
not going
was
to have
just about to say
control over
you're
our
not gonna be able
side
to control it.
or their side. Um, and make no one thing I want to say is I might be a little bit, you know, naive to think that we could possibly shame them, you know, with the truth. But make no mistake, I don't trust them. And I look at all of them, whether I'm not gonna lay a single hand on any of them, but I see all of them as literally my enemy. They are my enemy in every sense. So that's how I always will see them. I just look at different ways that you can affect the nonviolent combat in a sense to deal with the enemy. But you know, I definitely see them as the enemy and don't trust
Oh,
them.
so Marcus, so it's April, just the other day going into Biden, right? Since you brought him up, just the other day they put out the
Oh yeah,
press.
hold on, Biden.
Okay.
Let's get through these comments first, and then we'll get on because it's. I got a feeling Biden. This conversation go a lot of places. Um, let's see. Thomas says, I think nationwide roadblocks, halt shipments would work better. That would send a message to Congress.
That
Yes,
really is.
that's thinking. That's what we're talking about, and it doesn't take very many of us to start thinking of these ideas and start putting them into effect because you know the society we live in. Most people are followers. All they need is somebody to show them a way. And then once they have that way, then things can actually start to
You know,
progress.
we should take a page out of the book of like Krispy Kreme. You know what I'm saying? Give people a donut to show up at a protest. Because I mean that should seem to work for a vaccine, dumbasses. You know what I'm saying?
Speaking of the vaccines, I'm gonna lightly touch it, but
Yeah, no.
all the stuff overseas that's going on with the different nations and
Correct.
if you
So
guys are not abreast of it, please look into what's going on with these different nations between AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Johnson and Johnson. I'll leave it there. Oh yeah, and if anybody from Kaiser ever hears this or is listening, stop fucking calling me. I'm not taking that damn vaccination. Not taking it. So Kaiser, stop fucking calling me. They call me every day, like 3 times a day.
that's crazy.
Thank you, Thomas. He says, I'm on a roll with the truth bombs tonight, so thank you. VC says direct action is best action. They think they're untouchable. Only way to make them realize otherwise. Don't have to be sorry, tongue tied. Don't have to be bones, but plenty of other stuff they have is breakable. Whoo, man, that's a nice one. I like that. I mean, I might have to screenshot that later. That's a good quote to keep. Said, I call it misplaced white guilt. They feel guilt, so they look to scapegoat others and become apologists for slavery and conquest. Exactly. Exactly. But they don't want to listen to somebody like us. So, you know, that's just what it is. Oh yeah, Chris, you wanted to go on ahead with that comment you were going to say. Oh, hold on.
Oh
You
yeah.
can go ahead. I
So
need to give me a break.
yeah, so Biden, he announced what the administration, I should say, announced a couple of days ago that they're going to be withdrawing troops from Afghanistan, right? Of course, shortly thereafter, I saw a couple reports in a few newspapers and online publications saying, "What about the women of Afghanistan? What are they going to do without the protection of U.S. soldiers?" I mean, that in itself is ridiculous considering how many civilians that our soldiers have killed, maimed, or kidnapped, or whatever, done worse to, what have you. So I guess my question to you and the audience is, so do we expect something to happen between April and September 11th? Because they announced that by September 11th, they're taking the troops out. So to me, I'm fully expecting some kind of attack on our troops as a reason to keep them there. And if they do bring the troops home, then we already know that they're going to just be replaced with private contractors. And then at that point, you don't have the mainstream media. They won't report on anything that happens over there at that point.
I decided a little off topic, but I thought about all the stuff we were talking about, and I looked at my shirt. I was like, let me show y'all my shirt, which I'm wearing.
Power of the dark side.
That's what they are. The damn dark side.
Mm-hmm.
Masquerade, and that's the thing which I had to start telling people. We got to realize that we are literally, on the what is it called? I can't even remember the main ship Darth Vader had.
Oh, this
we're on the what are they? The Dark
Death
Planet.
Star?
Yeah, we're on the Death Star. That's what I was looking for. We are living on the Death Star, but we have been convinced that we are the heroes. And what most people don't realize, a good part of great storytelling, if you're a great storyteller, and I hope to consider myself one. Those who don't know, I do a little writing, nonfiction writing also. Um, but part of a good battle is there has to be a little bit of humanity or link in the bad guy so that you feel sympathy for the bad guy, so that you can kind of see the bad guy's point of view. For instance, say the bad guy, you frame the movie from the narrative showing when the bad guy is being abused as a kid, when they're being picked on, they're innocent, and then when they grow up and then turn into this complete horrible monster, then you've already laid this narrative of excuses for the behavior later on. And what we've done is we've accepted so many of the excuses and ignored all the horrible crap that we've been doing. You get what I'm saying? And so
Mm-hmm.
most of us who are starting to, as we say on the political matrix over there, we've come out of the matrix. We see it for what it is. And some people they say they are, they kind of tiptoeing. They're not quite there yet though. But I just had to get that out. But back onto the Biden thing. I was watching this pull the troops out of Afghanistan. I'm like, I do not see any possible way. I mean, possible, but I just don't know how I could trust Biden when I literally just saw a tweet the other day. Somebody had retweeted from Biden in 2014, or talking about that we would be out by 2014. Now, if he's already tweeted that we'd be out by 2014, and now we're still not out, why would I trust you now? Why should I believe you? And it's the same thing with Biden throughout his career. There is no reason why anybody should believe Biden on anything. And we just have to pay attention to the media is shading it the best they can to put this man in the most positive light they possibly can. While we have him talking about pulling out of Afghanistan, we also got to keep in mind that they just passed, authorized the largest military budget since World War II.
800 billion?
Pretty close. It was like 750, 58 billion or so. And you got to remember, okay, so we're coming out of Afghanistan. You say we're winding down out of Iraq. Why are you dedicating this much more money to the military? Now, for me, I feel like all we have to do is look at what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. All of these things are all tied and linked together because the reason why they really don't want to come out, well, there's multiple reasons why they don't want to come out of Afghanistan. Um, since they've been in that country, those bought off corrupted officials are fine with keeping the US there, and US corporations are there also making a lot of money off of the poppy fields.
And the Chinese are there too, and the Chinese are there mining for the raw materials as well.
Yeah, a lot of the heavy metals, because they're using in a lot of electronics and stuff, which they have been pushing out. So nobody really wants to get up out of these countries because they're making too much money. And then on the other side of it, you have Russia, who they want more access into the country, or they want the U.S. out. It's kind of like, hey, if I'm not going to benefit too, then can't nobody play over there. And so you have that going on with Afghanistan and in the whole Levant area. I hate to call it Middle East because that's a bullshit made up term to disguise and confuse people. We'll just call it the Levant. But in that area, it's the whole major battle which is going on. While you have that going on, you have Ukraine and Biden. Biden put these sanctions, but you notice he pulled them damn ships back. If you go, what was it, maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Putin literally called Biden out, said, hey, hop on the live stream. Let's talk about this. He said that you have deeply offended this nation. And Americans have had this attitude and arrogance and cockiness because nobody's had any wars on American soil and beat up on the U.S. since, except for Americans, or basically after the Revolutionary War, besides Native Americans, which they were slaughtered. So there wasn't very many other battles besides those. So an invading military coming in, that to most Americans, that's as foreign as seeing a horse talk or sit down on your couch like a human. It doesn't compute in most Americans' head that can happen, or that America could be touched. 9/11 should have showed you a big freaking warning that you can't be touched.
But Marcus, to take this and expand it, you could just see Biden is really just the puppet for the World Economic Forum and the pharmacy companies, the big tech companies. He's not really there. He's like I say, he's like Weekend at Bernie's. You know what I'm saying? He's just a body. He really is just there. Because if we look at all the plans that they've put out, all the suggestions, you can look at whether it's Boris in England, Trudeau in Canada, some of the people in Europe, and here in the U.S., we're following those policies to a T. You know what I'm saying? So it's just so we what we need to do is stop pretending that we can go at a president or a speaker or the Senate majority leader and think that we can just replace them and that things will be all right. Like you just gotta take a step back and look that there's people pulling their strings because they're not the last. They're not the cream of the crop. They're not the top. I call them middle management.
Yeah, I mean at best. I mean I look at what we have going on here. It's pretty simple to see some of the arms of this giant matrix and machine. You can look at the defense companies. You can look at the Congress people who get out of office and become lobbyists. You can see the connection between former joint chiefs of staff who get out and now become TV analysts who have all these different shares in General Dynamics,
Raytheon,
and Raytheon, in Boeing, and all of these different all these different subsidiaries. We can see it right there. These people bring these lackeys on there and then tell us why we need to go to war. And what's never ever mentioned, a disclaimer, like they should literally just pause the screen and a big ass disclaimer should come up and say, all of the guests are actually members of this lobbyist and are going to make money off of this. If you still want to keep watching this and listen to these opinions, keep that in mind the whole entire time. But they don't do that. They bring them on as if they are serious, legit, honest as God brokers, that they really just care about America and they just want us all to be safe. It's about safety and protecting us. Here's one thing which is crazy to me. We always talk about American safety, right? How far is America from Africa? I don't see anybody, I don't see like a little island of Africa or China, like just sitting like right next to US and there's a history of them attacking the mainland. I don't see Syria, a history of Syria attacking Boston. I don't see, I don't see soldiers from Islamabad, running through the streets of Chicago. How are these people a damn threat to us? They're not a threat. All they are is a threat to our CEO's bottom line and what they want to do in certain nations. Now, if they want to sit there and get into this country and do this or do that, hey, you're messing with my business interests. And that's what this country, you know what? Let's just call it what it is. It's not even a country. We live in a corporation.
Yeah,
They
I was going to say,
control
these wars and these misadventures, they have several benefits to those who prosecute them, right? One, you get to test out your weapons on the people, right? On the people of that land. I will only celebrate when USA brings home, yeah. Thomas, we're gonna have to find another reason to celebrate, Thomas, because that ain't happening.
Mhm.
I mean, that would be nice, but we know that will never happen. And plus, the soldiers, there's still too many of them that believe in it. You know what I'm saying? There's still too many of them holding on to that. I gotta watch my brother's back. Even though you're doing grimy shit, it's they instill that in you. You got to look out for your brother. If you walk away and decide to have morals or a conscience, that fact that you have to be there for your brother supersedes that, or overrides that, I should say, rather. So in terms of those people in the military getting wise, and there are a lot of them know in the back of their head, like, what the hell are we doing here? We're not supposed to be doing here. But for multiple reasons, they choose to just stay. I guess it's easier to stay. It's kind of like an abusive
Well,
relationship. You
and
want to
then
go, but
I
for
mean,
some people, it's hard to make that exit.
in a little bit of defense to some of them, I mean, most of the troops who go in are young, really young, and they don't. Many don't have a knowledge of politics very well. Most of them come from poor neighborhoods or out in the country somewhere, or a lot of times former gang members and stuff, and they're like, I just need to get away from where I live. I need a better opportunity, and so they go in and they build these bonds, and the I guess the instructors are, when I was Navy, so they were called RDCs, recruit division commanders or drill sergeants. They instill in you this brotherhood, and you kind of build it naturally because when you go through something with somebody, you become closer, and so you're all getting basically yelled at and screamed at and push-ups and woken up at crazy hours, and you're all going through this together. So it naturally does build a bond. That makes perfect sense. And then they enforce it more on you. So by the time you actually get out, and then you go through all your training on your job, you feel like, hey, I'm an expert. I know this. I understand that. And it's cool. You still at this point have not thought about what you're going to do with this and if it's good or bad. That has not even crossed your mind. Then you go off to your first command and they say, okay, you're going to, let's say you're going to Rota, Spain. You're in Rota, Spain, you're out partying, you're having a good time. It's not wartime. So you don't think about the fact that, hey, I'm not really doing anything. I just work, for instance, in my case, I work at weapons and we're just shipping weapons around basically. Not thinking about the fact of I'm sending out weapons that don't come back. that means that they're being used more than likely on people. So that's you're not even consciously thinking about your hand and suppressing and killing people. And I'm speaking from somebody who I feel like I have blood on my own hands because did a lot of that. I worked weapons commands for the longest, and that was mainly our job: maintaining weapons, transporting them, loading them on planes and ships and whatever. Sometimes arming, building weapons mounts to fire them. And my job in particular was a torpedo man, and I dealt with everything from small arms fire to going to school for 25 millimeter to 50 cal school, and different marksmanship schools, and then also dealing with Tomahawk cruise missiles and all kind of other stuff. And knowing now, being older, knowing that our government did not have good intentions in all of these things. And so they're making us think that, oh, you're going to go liberate somebody. You're not liberating anybody, you're oppressing them. And because you don't speak the language which they're speaking, you don't even know the degree of what you're doing. Sometimes you only learn when you are in those other nations. And for me, when I was in Greece, I was out at a bar, and there was a couple of ethnic Albanian kids, and I believe a Bosnian students there, Muslims,
Facts
and
variant.
they went through so many traumas and atrocities and saw it firsthand growing up. Now, granted, I had more awareness of this stuff, being that when I was in high school, we had refugee students from Bosnia and Kosovo and some of those areas. But when I started to talk to them, I started to learn that, hey, you're not really welcomed over here. You're not a hero like you think. I was thinking, oh, well, we're going to help. Like my friends, my Bosnian friends, which I grew up with, we're helping them. Well, in some cases, you might be helping, but in many other cases, you are not helping. In fact, you are the enemy to a lot of people, and you are oppressing a lot of people. And so we don't get that until we're, you know, I guess some of us with more of a conscience start to learn these things and start to learn about what our corporations are doing, some of the slaughters that go on that are covered up, the private contractors, the stuff that they're doing in the nation, in those nations. So some of us have a conscience and see all these things and say, "Whoa, I can't condone any of this." But some are so programmed with that America first, America's the good guy, we're saving, we're helping. Maybe we do a little bad here and there, but ultimately, overall, we're a force for good, And so that's the mentality a lot of those people get, and they get out after 20 years, and they feel like anybody, especially the ones who were in the military, say they got out around Desert Storm and they weren't in all the way into Afghanistan and Iraq and know what the government's doing now. Because it's definitely working in a different way than it was working back then. It is a lot more corrupt. The corporate CEOs are a lot more involved and a lot more controlling in the military than ever. I mean, when we were first going into Iraq and Afghanistan, it was like maybe 5% civilian contractors. Now, a lot of those areas, it's up to like 50% of the people there are civilian contractors, just making money hand over fist, and they
And
don't want
that's
it.
what, and that's what'll keep it going, right? Because we all value, unfortunately, our number one value is money. So you start showing people the money, there's not too many things that they won't do as long as the check as long as the check clears.
Yeah.
It's a sad reality, but it is the reality that we deal with. Like VC and Variant were saying, they play on the mentality, they play on the trauma, the manipulation, the isolation. They play on all that to make sure that these guys do whatever they carry out the plans of those who run the show. Also,
Mhm.
you think correct?
And you know the irony about it? VC makes a good point there. The irony about it is what they do in those other nations are literally what they did in this nation with many other people who are in the impoverished neighborhoods. The police force is just the difference that the police force is the one that does it, and our
No,
lawmakers
no, hold on.
over
You
the
know,
regular.
you know what's really ironic is that the parents of the soldiers, most of them support the politicians that continue to fund these operations overseas. That's where the disconnect comes in. How the hell you watching your son or your daughter, if she enlisted? How can you watch them go across seas to do this? You're home watching it on TV, watching it on the internet. How do you keep supporting these people? And that's a whole lot of them in the middle of the country. They don't deserve a pass either, just because life is hard and they don't have any other choice, so they go enlist. I mean, selling drugs ain't good either, but that's a choice somebody makes, right? To put some money in their pocket. That's not good either. You signed up for the military to go kill people. I mean, how are you any worse than? How are you any better than the drug dealer? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. At least people can choose to do drugs. Like the people who you're going to shoot drop bombs on and plan to destroy their neighborhoods or redraw their communities or their countries, they don't have a choice. They didn't come here with money in their hand and say, yo, let me get that. You know what I'm saying? So it's a very frustrating that you have this situation happening, and it's their parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles in their whole communities that continue to support the people that send them overseas to come back all crazy. And then when they come back, they don't pay them any mind. And then they
Mm-hmm.
watch them degrade, become addicts,
Mm-hmm.
become all screwed up, messed up, living under bridges, sleeping on the streets, you know, just touched in the head after because they had to go against all morals. And once the world stops spinning, once you get out of that hyper adrenaline phase, then you back in the world, man, karma coming for you. And even if she don't come physically, she's tormenting you in your brain because the things that you were doing weren't right. So it's not even, I mean, part of it obviously is the drugs that they're shot with too, but a lot of it is just that they know deep down that what they was doing was dead wrong.
And to clarify, for those who don't know, when he said the drugs they were pumped with, there are many documented reports that they were pumping them with heroin and cocaine so that they would be all jacked up during the Vietnam War and not have fear. Which that goes back to ancient tactics, which I'm trying to remember, was it the Romans or the Greeks which did that also? I think it was the Greeks who did that also, who used to actually take like a form of a opiate narcotic before they would go and fight. And the same thing with many of the Slavs and Scandinavian tribes also. So it goes back through, you know, a, a weird kind of a weird kind of Indo-European tradition of getting high as hell and then going into combat.
I mean, it helps with your inhibitions, I would assume, right? It would make you not care as much about the things you're doing while you're high. That you would
Or
probably do
fear.
things while you're high that you wouldn't do while you were sober.
Mhm.
So you kind of have to keep them high.
Yeah, and then what happens is they get off of that, very, very clean form that you might have given them, and then they start trying to get it wherever they can. It's the same thing which happens with a lot of those people who, like we have right now in this country, the opioid epidemic, where people they're on these prescription pills, and then all of a sudden it runs out, they can't get another prescription, and next thing you know, they're on a narcotic. And now you're wondering, how did they become a heroin addict? Because the doctor was overprescribing to them, which goes into all the corruption going in with the FDA and USDA. Man, there's so many levels of
Yeah,
how screwed up.
there's a lot of stuff going on. And then like VC said, the ultimate slap in the face is that after they finish using these weapons of death and destruction on foreign lands, they turn around and sell them to the police departments here. Or in some cases they have programs that just allow them to just give it away. So it's like, oh, it's look, we can use this tool twice, right, kid? We can use it twice. I can stab your family, then I could go stab their family with the same thing. We don't even have to make any changes. No, matter of fact, we'll just paint the tanks.
Mm-hmm. I keep trying to think of like what live stream service, because I see VCs. I'm bringing that comment back up. This one I'm responding to. So it's not even conspiracy. Follow the trail. See the patterns for yourself. I'm trying to figure if anybody out there knows a really good live stream service where, or I don't know, some kind of platform where I could do live streams, have you all in there, and not have to censor myself. Because whether you all know it or not, I am censoring the hell out of myself on a lot of this stuff because I could go
It's gonna have
so
to be your
much
own.
deeper
It's
and
gonna have to
then
be your own website. You're not gonna be able to do. You're not gonna be able to say anything you
I can't
want.
tell y'all the truth, all of it. So you guys know I can't tell you everything.
Yeah, it's really gonna have to just be your own website, and you're just gonna have to have people visit you there. Because on these platforms, if you say certain words, I mean, you saw what happened to us on the other side. I mean, we just
Mm-hmm.
mentioned Doctor Foolish,
Dr.
and
Fuzzbody.
we mentioned Doctor Foolish, and the show got pulled. You know what I'm saying? We ain't lie, we didn't make anything up, we didn't threaten anybody, but it was pulled for telling the truth. So, like VC saying, it's not even conspiracy. I mean, it's not even conspiracy theory. There are actual conspiracies, and we're watching them play out in a multitude of in multiple areas, I should say, rather.
Mm-hmm. Oh, let's see. Because so many people find denial about this, but if you have family, especially generations of family, sacrifice for this, then you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is one thing which, like, for those who remember when I used to have Israel Lucero on, and I go on his channel occasionally. Part of the reason why I don't go on his channel anymore, I don't have anything to do with him, is because I realized, there was this old quote back in the day. It used to be, "Kill the Indian, save the man." And so, what I realized is, people like him, he fell to that complete indoctrination completely. He makes excuses for his oppressors, and basically, I feel like when you make excuses for the people who did all the things for everything to get the way they are, and then blame the people at the bottom, is if, well, what are you guys not doing? Well, what do you guys need to be doing to fix this? Negating all the things that led to getting them in this situation. It's like, if you can't see this connection, I can't deal with you. And then on top of it, if you don't know and you're not knowledgeable about these subjects or about history, then stop getting out there and running your stupid ass mouth about it. I mean, he got on and literally made the statement, well, you don't really know them, didn't need to know history like that. And then he said, oh, right after that, he said, oh, guess what? I learned about the Haitian slave revolt. Oh, you didn't know about that? Yeah, that's why you need to learn history, you dummy. There's a lot more you don't know either. And if you studied and learned these things, then some of these stupid ass questions you asked would not come up. And anybody, if they like, they can definitely clip this part and send it to them, let them know. I don't really care. But if you're that damn stupid, then I'm not going to show you respect. Because if I've laid out the facts and details in front of you, you can sit there and research this stuff. You can see a pattern. I broke down with him from slavery through Jim Crow, through segregation, through the to the Blue Book laws, the sundown towns, what was it? Redlining, the factory closures, gentrification, and then how you can literally see that
Incarceration.
the incarceration rates, the over policing. I showed him how you can look across the board. You can take Black and Latino and Native Americans, and no matter what their training is, they make below their counterparts who are not Black, Latino, or Native American. And either you're trying to tell me that these groups of people are all lesser, that they're lesser in talent and education, and they're less capable of helping. That's why they need to be paid less. Then what you're telling me is that you, and Israel included, since he's a Latino male, that you're saying you are inferior as a people to white people, basically, to whites and Asians. That's what you're basically saying, because whites and Asians are at the top of that demographic. So that's what you're saying. You're saying that, you know what? All that out the window, my people are just inferior. We need to figure out how to do better. Your indoctrination and your self-hatred is disgusting to me. It's disgusting. If this was flipped, if this was completely flipped, white people would be in the same, as a whole nation, would be in the same situation. It's not hard to figure out. But if you take most of your education and learning from racist ass white people without questioning it, you're gonna sound like a dumbass coon, like he sounds like. Sorry to get a little
Thomas
sick
had a
there,
comment.
man.
Thomas had a comment for you.
No. Says, I gave up on Israel too. He is naive about history and his pro-American establishment. An apologist for slavery. Yes, he is. Sad because he looks like a descendant. And yes, you could tell he is obviously his nation. Do you know? Most people don't know this, but do you know that the Spanish, they lost like a third of their fleet? You want to know why? It wasn't by war. It was because of all the gold and treasure they were stealing from the Aztecs and Mayans. They were stealing so much gold that it was sinking their damn ships. They lost a third of their fleet that way because of the greed. And that's how almost all of Europe. See, people get this. They have a misconception. They only want to think within the American borders. Those nations over there were making money off of slavery without even owning slaves over here. So it's not some girl, well, my ancestors were in Denmark. We didn't have anything to do with it. Yes, you did. Denmark had a big part to play in it. They were a lot of the people who were on the damn ships, who were transporting. So you can't say, oh, well, my nation, we weren't involved. Every European nation was involved. Every single one of them. All the way
That's
over to Russia. Russia was involved too.
oh yeah. You know, it's ironic. Who's the biggest like chocolate producer in the world? Wasn't it one of the
Dutch?
those? Huh?
The Dutch, Denmark.
Yeah, one of them, right? And it's funny. There's not a goddamn cocoa plant that grows over there. You know what I'm saying? All that shit come from somebody else's country.
I mean, most people don't even realize. Do you know how Denmark actually got started? And you know what? There's no way to not say this, so I just gotta say it and hope that it slides by. Literally, there were Jewish pirates who were robbing the Portuguese ships of gold. They stole enough gold that they established the nation of Denmark. Look it up if you do not believe me. That is a fact. That's how that nation got started.
And so it was a gangster's paradise in Europe, huh?
Yes, they were all balling out of control. Because here's the thing. You think about it. Egypt was wealthy. Where did all their wealth go? Then you also had the Babylonian and Syrians. So that was the early Iraq, Persians, all those people. They were wealthy. All their wealth is gone. Then you had Mansa Musa, the richest man ever known to live. His kingdom had so much money that they would literally go through a whole area and cause a recession just because of how much money that they caused to come into that market. I mean, he had enough money where if he woke up as Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or any of them, he probably would have killed himself because he was too broke. Literally, his slaves had more gold and wealth on them than many kings that they saw. Now, after this man dies, all of a sudden, all of this wealth that was in Northwest, West Africa and Central Africa, all of a sudden vanished, and everybody thinks, oh, well, it was just because Europe was not wealthy. Europe was never really that wealthy. They didn't get wealthy until they start going around the world, right around about about
Could be
1450,
the 14th
when
century.
well, that's when most people don't understand this, that the people who are ruling Europe right now, they've been ruling since about 1450s. They weren't the same continuous people in those lands that whole entire time.
Mm-mm.
They came into power after throwing other people out of power. Now, go back and look at the coat of arms to all of the European nations. Look at what faces you see on there, and then that'll tell you who they threw out of power. And then when you'll start to understand why slave trades and stuff started happening, crusades and all that started happening right after it, it'll start painting you a clear picture. So these same CEOs and people who have all this wealth, it all comes back from all this raping, robbing, looting, going all the way back to, let's say, what, 1450s? That's when it started.
Mhm.
And so you take 10% of the world's because the Caucasian race is roughly about 10% of the world's population. 10% of the world's population has absorbed something like 60% of the wealth. And then if you really break it down, most of the modern Middle Easterns are not the same people who were living there about 2,000 years ago. These people all DNA wise break down into the Indo-European family also. So if you really look at it this way, Indo-Europeans are roughly about 20% of the population and own about 90 to 95% of the world's wealth, if you really think about it. You know, that's how tilted this whole damn system is.
Mhm.
And then people think that they can just march and get the right politician in. Yeah, keep dreaming. I was wondering. Oh, see, we have one more comment there. Says, can you imagine the wealth many Euro nations created when they stole rubber, cotton, gold, yep, crops of the Native Americans, and all looted Africa too? They probably made over 100 trillion.
And the
Yeah, I know,
people.
I know, I know. Just from the slave trades, well, in the continental United States, the United States made something like 42 trillion off of slavery. And that's just off of the so-called African Americans. That's not even factoring in the natives. And then when you factor in how many natives were killed, a conservative estimate would be about 100 million, 100 to 200 million. That's a conservative estimate. I would say if you span the whole Americas and all the slaughter which they did through Africa, the whole entire continent, and then into Asia, you can say that roughly this 10% to 20% of people have caused
Well,
most of all the crap that's happened in the
you could
whole
say
entire world.
you could say most of this hemisphere,
Mm-hmm.
from
Yeah.
lower Canada all the way through what we call United States, through Central America, in the
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean, in South America. They erased most of those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
they
they were.
made they made a lot more than you thought.
Hmm.
And here's the big dirty secret about it. They never tell anybody how much anybody with real wealth has. They tell you who Jeff Bezos. They tell you Bill Gates. They tell you these people. These people are not close. Carlos Slim. They tell you about all these different people. They're not close to the wealthiest people on earth. They're not close to it. They
That's
are
a fact.
not close. And the reason why is because the people who actually own all that stuff are never going to let you know how much money they actually have. That's the reason why none of the Federal Reserves or IMF or any of these monetary organizations around the world are ever audited. That's why. That's the reason why these tax havens are never audited, because that's where their money is. You don't get to know about that. And anybody's just say, oh, what's conspiracy to think that a handful of people who are really wealthy control everything? How did the Federal Reserve, in fact, before the Federal Reserve, how did most wars get paid for? Go back and look at how most wars got paid for. It got paid for through the earliest forms of banking. Back in those days, they did everything by gold. If you had a bank in another nation that was connected to you, you could send promissory letter to that other bank, or they could sign it there. And when you showed up to battle, you could get the gold that you needed and be able to fight. There are a certain group of people that was the early banking, and they continued on throughout that early banking, and it evolved into more and more things. And then the Catholic Church started having to borrow and deal with these people also. That's how they started to amass more and more of this power. And so the people who are at the early starts of this banking, those families, those descendants, they didn't turn it over to some government or some panel. They still own the shit. They just put people out there, front faces, for you to have somebody to scream at. But make no mistake, there are human beings, individuals who own these organizations by themselves or just their family. And when you start calculating how much money's flowing through there, it's impossible to say that we don't already have families of multiple trillionaires.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Marcus, we had like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I got to get up for work in the morning.
Oh yeah, I forget. That's right. You're on the East Coast. I'll read Thomas' last comment real quick, and then we'll get ready to wrap. My native ancestors put up a fight, but it was disease, divide and conquer, and they used centuries of weapon development across Eurasia to overwhelm us. They created disease and epidemics on purpose. Thomas, you're so right. The one thing I would add to that is there needs to be more emphasis on the epidemics, because that is honestly how they were to subdue the Native
Yeah, we have to put
through the smallpox.
We got to call a spade.
Disease.
Look, we got to call a spade a spade. They're just some nasty people. Nasty people. That's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, there was this one tribe I heard of that they it was somewhere down in South America or Central America, and these Europeans were talking about how beautiful it was. They didn't even do anything to the people. They left, came back like 20 years, and they're like, oh, I could have swore it was a village here. What happened is, after they left, they had infected all those people. It killed the whole damn village, and everything just grew over. Now archaeologists, I mean not archaeologists, I guess archaeologists, they've been looking down at the using thermal imaging and stuff, and been able to find the foundations of these early civilizations. And so I think it's underestimated how many people died from the diseases the Europeans brought. It's a lot of times we think that, oh well, maybe it's a lot more than weaponry. It wasn't the weaponry, it was the illnesses. And when they found out that people could die from these damn blankets, they started literally making smallpox blankets. As people would die, they would put these blankets on their dead people and let it sit there, so all of those infections can get on the blankets, and then hand those out to the Native Americans so that they can die off. But yeah, I guess we will leave it at that for now. Thank you so much for coming over and joining over here on what I've been thinking, Chris. Really appreciate it. And thank you for everybody who jumped in the chat. I noticed that I noticed Kelly was in there, and I forgot to shout her out, so I wanted to make sure to apologize and say, hey, we saw you, Kelly. And everybody, hopefully you all have a good night, good evening. Make sure you stay vigilant on these crazy ass people, and then make sure to catch us on the Political Matrix Saturday night. And I will have content. I will be doing a live stream of my Hebrew Apologetics page on Sunday. Not sure the time, but just make sure to check your notifications. Y'all have a good one. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.